The photograph was taken 4 days after Natalie Brooks came home from the hospital. The blind tabby cat had been waiting 6 nights to see her again. And Natalie was home, breathing, alive, because of something that very cat had done at 3:12 a.m. on a cold April night. 3 years earlier, Natalie had lifted that blind kitten out of a cardboard box behind a grocery store. 3 years later, the kitten lifted her out of something far worse. Her name is Natalie Brooks. She is 35 years old, a graphic designer who left a burnout career in Boston and moved into her late grandmother's old craftsman cottage on Maple Road in a small Vermont town just outside Burlington. She had been there for just under a year when she found the cat. Sometimes life arranges a fresh start for you without asking first, and Natalie had stopped explaining to anyone why she was no longer in the city, no longer in the marriage. She worked quietly from home, she walked the back roads at sunrise, and on most evenings she went to bed before 10, having heard no human voice since lunch. It was on an ordinary Saturday morning in early spring, on the way back from the grocery store, that she saw the cardboard box. It was pressed against the dumpster behind the Stop and Save, damp from the overnight rain, and from inside came a sound that Natalie almost mistook at first for a bird. When she bent down and lifted the soaked flap, she found a tiny gray tabby kitten, maybe 6 weeks old, with 2 milky, clouded eyes that caught no light at all. The kitten's small face turned toward the sound of Natalie's breath, but the eyes did not focus. They never would. The veterinarian in town would later confirm what Natalie already suspected before she even reached the car. Born blind, a kitten who, if the rain had lasted another hour, would not have seen another sunrise. She could not see anyway. She named her Hazel because hazel trees grew wild in the empty lot behind the cottage, and hazel grew whether anyone planted it or not. The first month was unlike anything Natalie had expected. Hazel couldn't find her food bowl if Natalie moved it even an inch. She walked straight into the leg of the kitchen chair on her second evening and sat there, perfectly still, waiting for the obstacle to get out of her way. She startled at sounds Natalie had never even noticed before: the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the mantel clock. Natalie learned to narrate what she was doing out loud. "I'm coming around the couch now, Hazel. I'm sitting down in the reading chair." She stopped closing doors quietly. She stopped sliding chairs without warning. She started humming when she cooked, just so a blind kitten would always know where she was. The cottage, which had been silent since the day Natalie had first carried her boxes inside, suddenly had a voice in it again, because a blind cat needed one, and somewhere along the way, Natalie realized she had needed one too. I notice you still haven't subscribed. That honestly stings a little. Hit that button. There's so much more to this story you really don't want to miss. 3 years passed. Hazel grew into a 9-pound tabby with glossy stripes and the talent for mapping a room through sound alone. She found the warmest patch of sun at 11:40 every morning. She knew which creak in the hallway meant Natalie was walking toward the kitchen, which one meant the bathroom, and which one meant the front porch where she would not follow. Natalie talked to Hazel constantly, told her about the weather, read her parts of the newspaper. Hazel's ears would move when Natalie laughed, and it felt, quietly, like being heard. Then came the night of April 8th. Vermont had dropped back into the 30s overnight after a warm week, and the old cast iron furnace in the basement had kicked on for the first time in more than a month. Natalie went to bed at 9:45 that evening, Hazel curled in her usual spot on the pillow above Natalie's head. And sometime after midnight, a hairline crack in the heat exchanger began to leak carbon monoxide up through the vents of the cottage, slowly, silently, invisibly. Natalie did not wake up, but Hazel did. At 3:12 a.m., the blind tabby who had slept through thunderstorms and delivery trucks and every kind of ordinary night began to pace. She jumped off the pillow. She walked into the bedroom wall. She staggered sideways into the nightstand, and then she climbed back onto Natalie's chest and she began to yowl. Not her normal voice, a long, raw, panicked sound that Natalie had never heard her make in 3 years. Stories like this one are exactly why we keep telling them. Some deserve to travel far beyond the walls they happened in. Natalie woke up in a fog she couldn't name. Her head was pounding. Her stomach was turning. She tried to sit up and the room tilted badly. Hazel was trembling on her chest, and for reasons Natalie would not be able to explain later, she looked at the shaking, disoriented, blind cat she had carried in from a cardboard box 3 years earlier, and she understood, somehow, that something was very wrong with the air in the house. She scooped Hazel against her collarbone. She stumbled down the stairs. She made it to the front door. She made it 3 steps into the cold yard before her legs gave out, and that was where her next-door neighbor Frank, a retired firefighter taking his old dog out at 3:19 a.m., found her on the grass, still holding the cat. Frank called the ambulance. The gas company was at the cottage within the hour. The carbon monoxide reading inside the upstairs bedroom was high enough that the first responder on the scene told Frank it had probably been another 30 minutes from being too late. Some stories deserve to be shared. This is one of them. Natalie spent 6 nights in the hospital on oxygen therapy. Hazel spent 3. The emergency vet in town placed the blind cat in a small oxygen chamber and told Natalie's mother, who had driven in from New Hampshire, that cats are more sensitive to carbon monoxide than humans, which is exactly why Hazel had felt it first. A blind cat whose entire world was built on smell and breath and the air she moved through had noticed something changing long before a sleeping human being ever could. The photograph was taken 4 days after Natalie came home. Hazel had refused to eat from her bowl on the floor while Natalie was gone. She would only eat from a dish placed on Natalie's pillow. She waited at the front window every afternoon at 4 p.m., the time Natalie usually came back from her walk. And when Natalie finally walked through her own front door again, still pale, Hazel came to her by sound alone and pressed her face into the curve of Natalie's neck and stayed there for the rest of the afternoon. 3 years ago, Natalie opened a cardboard box behind a grocery store and lifted out a kitten with no sight and almost no chance. She brought that kitten home, thinking she was doing a small kindness on a quiet Saturday morning. She could not have known that she was also arranging, in some quiet way, neither of them understood at the time, for that same small blind creature to save her life on a cold night in April. Sometimes we rescue them, sometimes they rescue us, and sometimes, if we are very lucky, we do not find out which one was really happening until years later at 3:12 in the morning, when the only one who notices the danger in the air is the one who never needed her eyes to see it. If you are thinking about adopting, please don't walk past the ones everyone else overlooks. The blind ones, the old ones, the ones tucked quietly into cardboard boxes at the back of grocery store parking lots. You may not know for a very long time what you are really bringing home. Did Natalie save Hazel, or did Hazel save Natalie? Tell me in the comments below.